Welcome to Quadratics. Let's start with the first question on solving equations. Before we solve this, we have to rearrange in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I'll try to bring 4x and 3 on the left hand side of the equation. So 5x squared minus 10x, and because this is positive, when I bring it to the other side, that's going to be negative. So negative 4x minus 3 equals 0. Uh, Now we can combine these. Negative 10x, negative 4x, that's negative 14x. So 5x squared minus 14x minus 3 equals 0. To solve this, we'll use the product and sum rule. The product is 5 times negative 3, which is negative 15. And the sum is negative 14. So we need to find two numbers that can multiply to give negative 15 and that can sum or add up to give negative 14. So the two numbers will be 1 and negative 15, positive 1 and negative 15, because 1 times negative 15 is negative 15 and 1 minus 15 is minus 14. So we have found our two numbers. So we can write this equation as x plus 1, because that's positive 1, and x minus 15 equals 0. Uh, the next step, because the x square, the value behind x square is not 1 but 5, we have to divide both of these numbers by 5. So we can write this as x plus 1 over 5, because that's just going to be a decimal. So let's keep that as it is. But here we can simplify this. That's going to be x minus 3. 15 over 5 is 3. So x minus 3 equals 0. Because we have two brackets here, we're going to have two answers. So we can say x plus 1 over 5 equals 0. This bracket equals 0. And x minus 3 equals 0. So x minus 3 equals 0. And now we can write this as x equals, we'll take this 1 over 5 to the other side. So it's minus 1 over 5. And this one would turn to be x equals 3. So the two answers for this question is x equals 1 over 5 and 3. Let's begin with the next question. To find x, we need to remove the square first. And to do that, we need to take square root of both sides. So by taking square root, we can cancel out the square root and square. So we have 2x minus 5. When we take square root of a number, it becomes plus or minus square root of that number. It's always plus or minus square root of that number. And next, we're going to remove the 5 by taking it to the other side of the equation. So 2x equals plus or minus square root of 7 minus 5 will become plus 5. And then we can divide both sides by 2. So the 2 cancels out, and the answer is uh, plus or minus square root of 7 plus 5 divided by 2. Or we can write this in a better way. We can write it as x equals 5 plus or minus square root of 7 divided by 2. This question is about sketching graphs, sketching quadratic graphs. To sketch graphs, we need to find the intercepts. We'll start by finding the y-intercept. To find the y-intercept, we need to replace x equals 0 in the equation. So to find y-intercept, what we're going to do is we're going to take this equation, and wherever we see x, we're going to replace that with a 0. So I'm going to rewrite this equation. Y equals, instead of x squared, we're going to write that as 0 squared plus 5 times x. Instead of that, I'm going to write it as 5 times 0 plus 4. So we have 0 squared, which is 0, plus 5 times 0, which is 0, plus 4, which equals 4. So we know that y equals 4. So that is our y-intercept. And I'm going to write that as a coordinate. And as we know, when we write coordinate, we write the x value first and then the y value. Because we said x equals 0, we're going to write 0 here. And the y value, or the y-intercept, would be 4. Next, we'll find the x-intercept. And when we find the x-intercept, we replace y with a 0. So let's have a look at the equation. Have a look at our equation. It's y equals x squared plus 5x plus 4. So instead of y, I'm going to replace that with a 0. So let's rewrite that equation. 0 equals x squared plus 5x plus 4. And I'm done writing the equation. It's time to solve this. The equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to use the product and sum rule. The product is 4 and the sum is 5. So the two numbers that can multiply to give you 4 and add to give 5 is 4 and 1, because 4 times 1 is 4 and 4 plus 1 is 5. So our equation will be x plus 4 times x plus 1, and we have an equal to 0 on the other side. So we can write this as two different equations: x plus 4 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. So from that we get x equals minus 4 and x equals minus 1. So we have found our two intercepts. We're going to write them as a coordinate. So because we said y was equal to 0, we assumed that y equals 0 for this. Both of the y coordinates will be 0, and for this one it's going to be the x coordinate will be minus 4, and here the x coordinate is going to be minus 1. It's time to draw the graph now, and because this is a quadratic equation, we know that the graph is going to be in the shape of u, something like this, but we need to figure out where does this pass through. So I've written down our y-intercept from before, so that's going to be 0, 4. So 0, 4, that point is about somewhere over here, and minus 4, 0, we know this is the x-axis, so minus 4 is somewhere over here, and minus 1 is somewhere over here. Now, because the equation that we saw for this was x squared plus 5x plus 4, and the value of a, which is the number in front of x squared, is 1, and it's positive, the graph is going to be shaped like this. Now instead, if this was a negative value, let's say it was minus x squared or minus 5x squared, 2x squared, can be any number. If it was negative, it would have a shape that would look like this. It would be an upside down u. If it's positive, so we can remember, if x squared is positive, it's going to be u. If x squared is negative, it's going to be upside down u. So we can draw our graph now. So we know it's going to pass through x squared minus 4, it's going to pass through minus 1, and it's also going to pass through 4. So that is our graph. This question is again about sketching graphs, so we'll find by finding intercepts. So let's find our y-intercept first. So as we know, to find the y-intercept, we have to substitute x equals 0. So we'll rewrite this equation, but wherever we see an x, we're going to put a 0 instead. So 10 times x, we're going to put a 10 times 0, minus 4 times x squared. So we're going to write 4 times 0 squared. And that's 6 minus 0 minus 0, which is just 6. So our y-intercept is 0, because x is 0, and 6. And now let's move on to finding the x-intercept. And when we find our x-intercept, we substitute y equals 0. So instead of y, we're going to write this equation as 0 equals 6 minus 10x minus 4x squared. Now, to solve this, we're going to use product and sum rule, but before that, we're going to multiply the whole equation by minus 1 so that we can flip the signs. We do not want to solve for negative 4x squared, so we're going to multiply the whole equation by minus 1. So that's going to be minus 6 plus 10x plus 4x squared. So that just flipped all the signs, and we can rewrite this equation as 4x squared plus 10x minus 6, and that is done by rearranging. Now we're going to use the product and sum rule. The product here is the multiplication of these two numbers, minus 6 and 4, that's minus 24, and the sum is 10. The two numbers that multiply to minus 24 and sum to 10 are 12 and minus 2, because 12 times minus 2 is minus 24, and 12 minus 2 is 10. So the two numbers are 12 and minus 2. So we can write this as 0 equals x plus 12 and x minus 2. Now remember that because this is not 1, the number in front of x squared is not 1, it's 4. So we're going to divide both of these by 4. So x plus 12 over 4 is 3, and x minus 2 over 4 is 1 over 2. So we can write it like this. And then there's going to be two answers. X plus 3 equals 0 and x minus 1 over 2 equals 0, from which we get x equals minus 3 and x equals 1 over 2. So our x-intercepts are minus 3 comma 0 and 1 over 2 comma 0. So these are our two x-intercepts. And from before, if you remember, our y-intercept was 0, 6. So let's write that down here. The y-intercept is 0, 6, and these are our x-intercepts. So let's make these points in that graph. So 0, 6, 6 is somewhere over here, and minus 3 is somewhere over there, and 1 over 2 half is somewhere over here. So that's 6, that's minus 3, and that's half. Now, we have seen that the equation of this question had minus 4x squared. The x squared had a negative value. If you compare that with the last question, the x squared value was positive, but this time it's negative. So we know the graph is going to be upside down. If it's positive, it would have been this way, but because this is negative, it will be the other way around. So let's try to draw this graph. So it's going to look something like this right here. That's our graph for this question.